I'm Brian Burhans, public speaker, trainer, and nonprofit consultant. After 2.5 decades serving in leadership roles such as CEO and executive director, I've come to appreciate the importance of leadership skills at all levels of an organization. The top priority of all good leaders, after all, is to make more leaders. One area of leadership many individuals struggle with is critical thinking skills and developing these skills to challenge the very assumptions we all make when developing our values and our beliefs. I've seen many individuals let their career spiral out of control simply because they would not use their critical thinking skills to test their own beliefs. Have you ever interviewed a candidate and when they were not selected, they assumed that the system was rigged, fixed, or otherwise corrupt? Have you ever felt the same way? The first lesson is simple. As humans, our decision-making process is easily flawed, which I'll talk about in this segment. It's simple biology, but recognizing our weaknesses is the first step towards success.
One of the things about purpose is your values, and we all have a different purpose. We all have different values. We're all completely different. But remember, values drive your purpose. Purpose drives your actions, and actions drive a culture. One of the most important things in development of values is the importance of using your critical thinking skills to test the assumptions of your values. And there's a reason for this. We use assumptions when we have gaps in knowledge. But if we don't use our critical thinking skills, we can have values that may not be correct. And I can tell you, I know what's happened to me many times, probably on a daily basis. It happens all the time. But to clarify that, let me talk about the ladder of inference, because it's really simple and it really is a great way to articulate how we develop values and beliefs. Well, first there is reality. And guess what? None of our brains can compensate or can really even fathom reality. Reality is everything that's out there. So on any specific issue, there's no way that we can understand the entire reality. So what we do as humans is we cut off just a little bit of that reality, and we put that into another reality, which is a selected reality. Now, we're going to build this model or this thought process from there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to basically analyze. What do we see? What events are happening? As humans, we do have a tendency sometimes to latch onto things where we have an idea where we think our values should be, and we tend to cherry pick some of those. But that analysis period is very important for us to really have an honest discussion with ourselves and really look at all the data we possibly can. Once you get through that, we've got the assumptions. Now, the assumptions, all assumptions assumptions are going to have to be made because we can't have all the information. Once we get done with building our assumptions, we move then into a conclusion. We now reach the point where we're concluded what our value is. We move from there into a belief, and a belief into actions. Now, what's really interesting with this ladder of inference, just as you can move up the ladder, you can move down the ladder. So say you're in your actions and it's just not working out for you. Something's not clicking right. Well, you can use the ladder of inference to go ahead and challenge at each level within that thought process. We can go back to the belief and say, is my belief correct? I can go back to my conclusion. Is this the right conclusion I've reached with the data and information that I have? I can go back to my assumptions, and I can critically test all my assumptions. Are all my assumptions correct? Or is there other information I need? And I can go back to my analysis. I'll talk about in just a few minutes an example where they weren't even working from the same reality. So mistakes in our judgment or lack of critical thinking about some of our assumptions can cause us very much problems when we're developing our values and actions. I'm going to read you a story here real quick and see who comes to your mind, who this paragraph is describing. On a cold January day, a 43-year-old man was sworn in as chief executive of his country. By his side stood his predecessor, a famous general who, 15 years earlier, had commanded his nation's armed forces in a war that resulted in the defeat of Germany. The young leader was raised in a Roman Catholic faith. He spent the next 5 hours watching parades in his honor and stayed up celebrating until 3 o'clock in the morning. Have an idea in your mind what that might be? You're probably thinking JFK. But I left out one piece of information. If I told you that day was January 30th, 1933, it completely invalidates that assumption. That person is being described in that paragraph is Adolf Hitler. They both, if you look it up, both of them meet that paragraph to a T, but that one small piece of information completely changed the whole story.